things I think while I lie awake and contemplate tonight are wearing me out. Well, maybe tomorrow the world will wake and get it right, but I have my doubts, yeah. So during the day, well, I design machines of war that scream through the sky. 'Cause I, for one, I like to go to bed free at night under these stars and stripes. And I have my doubts that we're coming out. Yes, I have my doubts. And I have my doubts that we're making back out. Yes, I have my doubts. But they'll wind you up and pull the cord until you're spun right out. And I don't understand. So roll the dice and raise the price to feed the machine's mouth. Call it the progress of man. Yes, I have my doubts. And I have my doubts that we'll make it back out. And I have my doubts. So I'll drink my stuff and raise some hell and shoot my guns to the end of my time. You can have the booze and go to hell and take the guns, but I know they won't be mine. And I have my doubts that we're coming out. Yes, I have my doubts. And I have my doubts that we're making back up. I have my doubts. So we're all messed up and out of touch. Let's text someone who's in the other room. So don't wonder why we don't say hi or know anyone. I might as well move to the moon. So maybe I'm wrong. Well, I hope that I'm wrong. So maybe I'm wrong. Well, I hope that I'm wrong. Well, the things I think while I lie awake and contemplate at night.
Good evening. Hope everybody is doing well. I got a little depressed right before I started the show. I looked at our local witchcraft report. You know what I'm talking about, the witchcraft report, the one that tells you what the temperature is going to be like tomorrow, whether it's going to rain and stuff. So I thought we were going to have a warm-up happen a little bit sooner, like by a couple of days. But apparently, in typical Illinois weather fashion, spring has been postponed. So it is. Anyway, yeah, I noticed the very first comment that I was punctual. I actually try most nights. Sometimes I'm running and I just don't get a chance to try to be punctual, but I've got it figured out. that if I hit my start stream button, right, exactly 15 seconds before the show, before 8 o'clock my time, the go live button on YouTube will pop up for me to click right at 8 o'clock. And so 15 seconds, if anybody out there wants to know the magic number of the lag between the time that you start your stream to the time that that stupid go live button comes active, it's 15 seconds. Anyway, for me anyway. So, wow. Lots of craziness indeed today. Not a lot to report with the convoy. I mean, everything went fine. They did convoy around today. I know for a fact one truck at least made it in. That truck at some point throughout its transit through D.C. today did get a traffic ticket for an equipment violation, I assume. I think he had an air leak or something. But anyway, another driver of a vehicle, just a regular vehicle, got a ticket for crossing over a double yellow line. And here's the thing. It was, I don't know what they call them. I can't remember what they call them, like the Amazon van things, whatever the hell they call those vehicles. That's what it was. And what the deal was the truck driver wasn't quite sure how to get out of there. I don't think he was used to DC. And so this vehicle was going to go ahead in front of the truck and lead the truck out. They were on their way out of DC. And sure enough, the cops had to slow them down on that happening because she went to go get around the truck, and that's when they pulled her over for crossing over the double yellow line. Well, the truck continued on, and everybody continued on for a little while, and I guess maybe 30, 45 minutes later, sure enough, pickup truck, a Metro DC police pickup truck, and just a regular squad car, real quick pulled up behind and pulled over the truck, and they did an on-the-spot DOT inspection, and so I think there was a small air leak or something. I'm pretty sure the truck didn't have to be towed or anything, but anyway, not a whole lot other than everything's going fine. There's no problems. It's a lot smoother now that Brian's back. A lot smoother. So I think tonight they're just going to have kind of a chill out, hang out night. Brian had invited everybody out there over to the area near his truck where he's kind of, made a little fire pit. Well, not a little one, but made a fire pit and stuff like that. So I think they're just all going to kind of hang out and have a good time tonight. And then more convoy tomorrow, as far as I know. Now, this weekend, they are going to have a race out at the track. And I guess the race is split up between an earlier time and then a later time or something. I know there's some time in between, like several hours in between races. And at that time, there are going to be 3 speakers come up to speak at I don't know if they're going to speak at the racetrack or if they're going to speak at the semi-trailer back in where the semis and stuff are. I'm not sure, but it's going to be Dr. Robert Malone. And I keep forgetting the name of the other doctor, and there's 2 other people that are going to speak. And for some reason, I keep forgetting the name of that doctor. I'm trying to scroll real quick. Hang on. I will find it very quick like. Hang on. Dr. Robert Malone, Dr. Paul Alexander, and then Brian Brazzi are the 3 that's going to speak. And that's going to be this Saturday out there. So I have a feeling that there's going to be a whole lot of people attend that rally. So anyway, that's going to be really cool. Now I will tell you this. The live streamers out there know that they cannot stream this event on YouTube. And I'm letting you know that they know that, and they won't attempt it. So if you want to see a live stream of this rally this weekend, because I know many of you can't make it, what you want to do is you want to go to Rumble and you want to find Oreo Express. Oreo Express. I am sure that Oreo Express is going to cover the rally this weekend, but I am also sure that he's going to be covering it on Rumble, not YouTube. So I think he does other platforms too. I think he might do Twitch and others and stuff, but I know he does Rumble, and I know he's good with doing the rally on Rumble, and so that's one avenue for you to be able to watch it, because you know, the YouTuber tries streaming it, they're gonna get got real quick. So anyway, figured I would let you know about that. And that, if anybody wants to know the time, it's Saturday, the 26th. It's 3:30 to 6 p.m. if you want to know the time that you should be watching for those streams. So, okay. That's pretty much all I can think of involving the convoy. I can't think of anything more. Not off the top of my head. Let me have some coffee. All right. I'm going to go ahead and get to the tabs I have open, because I do have several open. And this is what I was talking about, the article I was talking about in the title for the show. A Wall Street bank raises U.S. economy alarm. It says here, United States will probably enter a recession if oil prices continue to soar and surpass $200 a barrel. Goldman Sachs chief economist Jan Hatzius said on Thursday. I'm sure I said her name wrong. We estimate that it could take a substantial oil price increase to $200 per barrel to produce an income shock similar in magnitude to those that precipitated the 1974-1979 recessions. And this would significantly increase the 2022 recession odds, Hatzius said in a note seen by Yahoo Finance. The warning comes as top oil traders predict that prices could break the $200 a barrel mark this year as a result of Western sanctions against Russia and the lack of alternative sources. So, I'm not going to go all the way down into the article. You get the gist of things. But I want to add to this, and I'm not trying to fearmonger or anything, but there's a lot of other issues too, like with food. And the lack of that. And I won't say the lack is in, oh my God, we're going to starve to death, because we should be fine as long as we can get some crops into the ground. I mean, there's an issue obviously with fertilizer and all that. But if we can manage to get some crops into the ground, we should be able to be fine. The reason why I say that is because a lot of these countries that produce a lot of like grains and stuff like that, they make a whole lot of money by exporting it. And if there's like major issues with shortages and stuff like that within your own country, especially in the light, I mean, that we are like right on the cusp of World War III, I have a feeling that this country would not be exporting. They would be worrying about their own first, and then maybe exporting if they had some left over. I do not see the producers in this country, not allowing this country to have the supplies, to have the food. Not saying it's not possible, I just really don't see that happening. I could be wrong, but I don't see that happening. I do see, however, a massive increase in price, either way you look at it. So this isn't just fuel that we're going to have to pay more for. It's going to be, and even at that, you're going to have to pay more for products because of the transportation involved and all of that. But the thing of it is, everything is going to skyrocket, not just fuel. So I don't know how things are going to look. Economically, right now, they don't look good at all. And the more that Russia and other countries start working around the U.S. dollar, the more impact that's going to have on the U.S. dollar. So we're not in good shape when it comes to this. I figured, it's in the news. I figured I would point it out. I have a couple other headlines kind of related to economy. This one here, this is an op-ed piece, so I'm not here to read the article to you. I want you to understand what they're talking about, okay? The data is not important in this. Again, it's an op-ed, and in my opinion, most op-eds is really nothing more than propaganda. So that's not important. But what they're talking about, as the title says, is Western elites are exploiting the Ukraine conflict to lower the standard of living. Now, I'm not here to talk to you about standard of living in Ukraine or Russia or any damn well else but the United States. And if you've been around this show for very long, you've heard me say it many, many times before. One of the scariest things I ever heard a president say was Bush Sr. when he said to better compete in the global economy, or that we have to better compete in the global economy. Now, the thing of it is the only way that we can better compete in the global economy when we're competing against countries that will have child slave labor for pennies on the dollar, the only way that we can compete with that is to lower our standard of living. Now, what in the hell, and I was saying this way back, when he said that, I was saying this. And what's happened in all these years since he said that? We have been lowering our standard of living. And some people may argue that. Some people may say, oh no, well now we've got this, and all this bread and circuses, right? But we don't have savings. And believe me, the trade-off isn't there. Folks back before that time period, as long as they worked hard and stuck at it, they were able to put back money. They were able to put back a nest egg. But I know in my time coming up, say like the latter part of the 80s into the 90s and on, those opportunities weren't there. Now, if you invested a bunch of time in school and all that, yeah, you had a decent chance of being able to make a pretty good buck, and there are a lot of other fields you could make a decent buck. But enough to the level that you would be able to not only not, have to worry about retirement because you'd have some type of retirement package, but actually make enough on your take-home pay that you could put money back in the bank to save. That didn't exist a whole lot in my time coming up. So we have in reality lowered our standard of living. Sure, we have cell phones and tablets and computers and this and that and the other thing. I get it. But that's not wealth. That's not assets. That's not assets. It's not property, land. It's not, a business or savings so you can invest into one of those things. It's crazy. It's crazy. I wanted to point that out just because that's the propaganda that's being talked about. But the reality of it is the Western societies, and I mean most of them, have slowly been lowering the standard of living for their citizens, to better compete in the global economy. This is not surprising to me at all. 1 in 3 young adults in the U.S. live with older relatives, says a poll. Here's the interesting thing. There's also a high number of elderly that live with their children. I don't know if it goes into that. I'll read a little bit. Says a growing number of young American adults have opted to move back in with their parents or other older relatives rather than to struggle to afford a home of their own, according to a recent Pew Research poll that shows the percentage of multi-generational homes has more than doubled over the last 50 years. Again, that's lowering the standard of living. I'm sorry. Of all men and women aged 25 to 29, nearly a third, 31%, live in multi-generational households, even among those aged 30 to 34. More than 1 in 5, 22%, live with another generation, usually parents. These figures are significantly higher than they have been for previous generations, suggesting financial strain may be a factor in the decision to move back in with older relatives. Well, no kidding. For purposes of the survey, multi-generational households include all homes with at least 2 generations of adults ages 25 and older, or skipped generation homes such as grandparents living with grandchildren under 25. When one includes all age groups, 18% of Americans live in multi-generational households, a figure that has grown steadily since the 1970s. However, analyzing the data by age yields some surprising revelations. Among young men aged 25 to 29, a whopping 37% live in a multi-generational home, widening the scope from ages 18 to 34. Living with parents is the most common household setup for young men and has been for over 10 years. You know why, right? Because they can't afford. Especially if they've got children, they can't afford their own home, even an apartment. I wonder why that is. Women, too, are increasingly living in multi-generational homes, though they are less likely to do so than men. Of those aged 25 to 29, over a quarter, 26%, live in such households. So, anyway, I'm not going to read the rest of it, but, I'm telling you, It's not a good situation. It's not been a good situation. We've been in economic turmoil for literally as long as I've been paying attention. And it's just been getting worse and worse and worse. Not getting better. There's you had, say, the Great Depression. Everything went to hell. And regardless whether you like the new system that it, replaced it or not or whatever, that system was put in and it worked, and it I won't say it was fine, but it worked. I'm telling you, this time around, we're going to get screwed worse than they got screwed back in the 30s, I think. I really do. All right, let's see. Leaders warn of unprecedented global food crisis risks. So I wanted to mention that. But like I say, the countries that produce the food, I think, are going to do what they can to keep enough food in to feed people. I don't think that's going to be such a big issue, because I think, to be honest, there again, it is the Biden administration. Yeah. Well, normally, a president would prevent companies from selling out all the grains and stuff like that so that we would have enough. But this is the Biden administration, so they would probably give them tax cuts to export everything. Anyway, NATO explains why it won't send troops to Ukraine. Says here, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg reiterated on Thursday that the U.S.-led bloc will not send troops to Ukraine nor impose a no-fly zone over the country, citing the risk of a full-fledged war between NATO and Russia as a reason for refusing Kiev's entreaties. Speaking to the press, Stoltenberg brought up the many different types of support Ukraine has received, including military support, training, combat equipment, and fuel. And the combination of training and support from NATO-allied countries with the bravery and the courage of the Ukrainian armed forces is enabling the Ukrainians to really resist and actually fight back the invading Russian army, Stoltenberg said. However, he noted that NATO made it very clear from the beginning of Russia's offensive that it would not send NATO troops on the ground or NATO planes in the air. We do that because we have a responsibility to ensure that this conflict will not escalate beyond Ukraine. That will cause even more suffering, even more deaths, even more destruction, Stoltenberg, who is expected to extend his term as head of the alliance for another year due to the situation in Ukraine, said. And yes, he did extend his term, so that'll be in the headlines. Let me have a sip of coffee. The rest of the tabs I have open, by the way, are, conflict type of things. So that's pretty much the prevailing thing. U.S. prepares for failure of anti-Russian strategy, says media. Now, I've heard this reported from two different ways, right? This is the way from Russian media. I've also looked a lot into, other media, not just this media. And, it's not looking good. It is really not looking good. From my understanding, the United States is really looking hard through all the options. So, it's not good. It says here, though, senior U.S. officials tasked with improving the country's geopolitical position in the wake of Russia's attack against Ukraine have doubts about their government's current strategy, the New York Times reported on Wednesday, citing sources familiar with the discussions. The admission was buried in an article detailing the work of the Tiger Team, a group created in late February by the White House for planning around the situation in Ukraine. The report itself largely focused on how the U.S. was preparing contingency plans for the unlikely scenario that Moscow would use weapons of mass destruction. In addition to establishing the unit, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan formed a second body for long-term planning, the newspaper said, explaining its skepticism of the established Western narrative regarding the Ukraine conflict. Inside the White House, it has become an article of faith that Russian President Vladimir Putin made a huge strategic error, one that will diminish Russia's standing, cripple its economy, and alienate potential allies for years. But is early in the conflict, other officials caution, and that conclusion may prove premature, the newspaper detailed. So anyway, one of the things I'm looking at when I'm taking all of this in, it's not just the war, the battle between Ukraine and Russia, but also the battle between Russia and the Western countries when it comes to the economic sanctions and all that stuff that's going on. So it's not just about whether or not a Russian troop crosses into a NATO country. It's not just about, whether or not, I don't know any other scenario really where NATO would jump in. I mean, they would pretty much, I think, have to either use something. Well, NATO would probably jump in, and this is kind of one of my concerns. I think NATO would jump in if they quote-unquote had belief that there was chemical weapons used. So, and I'm actually kind of mentally prepared for that excuse, and I'll word it that way, that excuse, because I'm sorry, but ever since I've been paying attention, every time that I hear word about a chemical attack somewhere in another nation, it turns up that some people very close to the United States were involved with it. So there's that. I mean, seriously, all the way from the Saddam Hussein years in the 90s to, of course, 2001 and on. Anyway, NATO issues warning to China. This says NATO members have called on China to abstain from supporting Russia's war effort in Ukraine on Thursday. The U.S.-led military bloc also warned Beijing against trying to help Moscow circumvent Western sanctions. Following an extraordinary summit in Brussels devoted to Russia's military offensive against the former Soviet state, NATO issued a statement which, on top of sharp criticism of Moscow, contained warnings to Beijing as well. We call on all states, including the People's Republic of China, the document reads, to abstain from supporting Russia's war effort in any way and to refrain from any action that helps Russia circumvent sanctions. I think I read that earlier. NATO's statement goes on to express concern over recent public comments by PRC officials urging China to cease amplifying the Kremlin's false narratives, in particular on the war and on NATO. So, and then here, China says that everyone knows who is most to blame for the Ukraine war. And it's important to know what they are saying. And that's actually why I appreciate having RT as a source right now more than ever. Because I not only want to hear what our leaders are saying, I want to hear what their leaders are saying. I want to hear what everybody's saying. I'll tell you what, I've seen multiple times that our quote-unquote leader has made a statement, especially, say, involving a meeting with another nation, right? And our quote-unquote leader will come back and say, oh, yeah, everything's fine, we got a good relationship, and all that. But yet, their media is reporting a totally different outcome. And I see that quite a bit. And more often than not, I find out that the news coming from the other countries are more accurate. And usually our leaders are bullshitting their citizens. And I say leaders because I've seen Biden do it. I mean, not so much because, come on. He doesn't even come out of the basement very often. But, I've sat and watched Trump do it. Of course, Obama. I've watched them all do it. Let's see. Russia makes Hunter Biden biolab claim. I thought I would include this in the articles to talk about just because, hey, anybody got a laptop? A sprawling network of Ukrainian biological laboratories have received funding from U.S. government agencies and companies closely affiliated with top American elites, the Russian military claimed on Thursday. The fresh allegations were presented by Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov, a commander of the Russian Nuclear, Biological, and Chemical Protection Forces, during a press briefing. The available materials make it possible to trace the scheme of interaction between U.S. government agencies and Ukrainian biological objects, Krylov said, presenting an elaborate scheme purporting to show the flow of funding. So, is this true? Who knows? But, here's the thing. Can you trust it either way? If Hunter Biden wants to tell you, or if old Sleepy Joe Potato Head would tell you himself, or, would you, or Russia, anybody involved in this, would you believe any of them? That's the crazy part of it, is you can't believe anybody involved. That is the crazy part of it. I just looked over towards the chat, and I'm sorry I don't do that more often, but I see something I say very, very often. Wars and rumors of wars. I say that almost daily, actually. Maybe not here on the show, but at some point through the day, even if it's just in my head, I say wars and rumors of wars, because, man, there's a whole lot in all of this that just doesn't add up. A whole lot of countries that are doing the very same things together, lockstep. And it almost sometimes seems like we're just along for a dog and pony show. And I don't know. Maybe the case, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe it's Maybelline. Maybe it's not. And sometimes, just sometimes, you feel like a nut. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I guess that probably shows my age. Most of you are probably like, what the hell is he talking about? For those that did get that reference, haha, you're old too. Alright. Okay, MEP, I'm going to do headlines if you couldn't tell. They're all from this morning, by the way. MEP accuses Canada of human rights violations. Good question. Can I define a woman? I probably shouldn't define. I'll get in a lot of trouble. I'll probably get banned off of YouTube if I go into that discussion. Because I'll have fun with it. Anyway, let's see. Did I say that one? NATO set for new troop deployment on eastern flank. I think I did. Ukraine wants SWIFT to cut off Russia's central bank. Let's see. Americans want Biden more involved in Ukraine, a poll shows. And by the way, I really want to know who the hell they polled for that, because man, I don't see that. I don't see a bunch of U.S. support to go to war, or really to do more with Ukraine. I think, man, I think there's a fringe group, if you will. I hate using that word, but I think there's a fringe group of people that believe everything the government tells them. And I do believe that they probably want Biden to do more with Ukraine. But I think the large majority of us, I think we want Biden to worry about us, this country. Because, man, it's this country's like the sinking Titanic, right? And the captain of the ship is like not even with it. He's like, just don't even know the ship is sinking. Anyway, sorry. Let's see. UK promises more high explosive weapons for Kiev. I wish they would call me, but ex-colony wants full independence from British Crown. North Korea launches suspected ballistic missile. That has been confirmed. Nestle punishes Russia by banning Kit Kats. Take that, Russia. No more Kit Kats for you. Yeah, that'd teach them. Actually, that might get us nuked. I don't know. Depends how much Putin likes Kit Kats. South Korea launches missiles in response to North's test. Oh yeah? Well, we'll launch missiles back. Litter the ocean some more. Russian stocks rebound after markets reopen. British PM suggests targeting Russia's gold reserves. Bulgaria will pay for Russian gas in rubles whether they like it or not, says the Kremlin. Well then. Britain targets top Russian bankers and state-controlled entities. Moscow, Tehran developing SWIFT alternative, says Iranian ambassador. FBI barrages Russian embassy in Washington with ads, says the media. Red Cross wants office closer to Donbass and Ukraine. Turkey rejects Ukraine precondition to receive weapons from the U.S. UK food bank users declining potatoes over cooking costs, says reports. Germany calls for EU energy emergency plan. Home Depot's privilege memo leaked online. NATO assesses risk of full-fledged war with Russia. I covered that one. British politician refuses to define woman. Apparently, people going for U.S. positions also refuse to define it. India snubs U.S. call to isolate Moscow. I would literally define it. Factually define it, but they would probably give me not a copyright, but a YouTube strike if I like. I could probably go to a medical journal that didn't come out like last year, and I could go back to a medical journal and probably read the entry from it to you, and I would probably get a strike. Let's see. I covered that one. NATO chief extends term over Ukraine war. German politicians seek to sell monument to Hitler's enemy to make money for Ukrainians. Covered that. Russian chiefs to defend swimmer amid probe into appearance at Putin event. Wall Street Bank. I covered that one. Climate group bans musician for wearing dreadlocks. Yeah. Well, it was a white chick with dreadlocks, so that's what the problem was. Well, it is. U.S. promises to take 100,000 Ukrainian refugees. Well, thank you, Biden. Piece of. U.S. goes after Russian gold. U.S. does not rule out Ukraine's territorial concessions. South Korea's outgoing and incoming leaders can't agree to meet. Pope speaks against sanctions and calls for more women in power. I don't know if he thinks those two things should be related or not. I don't know. Let's see. U.S. hits Russian MPs, gold reserves, and defense sector with new sanctions. China says everyone knows who is most to blame for Ukraine. Oh, I covered that. Sorry. Let's see. U.S. tested experimental drugs on Ukrainian soldiers, says Moscow. And again, is it propaganda? Yeah, it absolutely could be propaganda. But do you absolutely 100% trust that your government wouldn't do that? Because I don't. Because they've tested experimental drugs on U.S. soldiers, and there's proof of it. So, fund linked to Hunter Biden and... Oh, I actually covered that. Russian pranksters trick UK Home Secretary. Donald Trump sues Hillary Clinton. And he's probably going to get real depressed or something real soon. Let's see. Leaders warn of unprecedented global food crisis risks. Ukrainian witches plan coven to depose Russia's president. So you better be careful. You got witches after you there, Putin. The unipolar world has come to an end, Russia's former president says. Let's see. I just hope we can be done with the bipolar world. Let's see. U.S. exempts American journalists from Russia sanctions. Let's see. I covered that. 2 more U.S. states pass bills banning biological boys and girls sports. Uh-oh, that's going to give me a strike. I'm kidding. Let's see. Let me see if by chance by the dawn's early light. If there's any more headlines, hang on. I gotta go through this stupid thing, because if I don't go through this stupid procedure, then it won't pop up. I don't think there's any more headlines. Hang on. I'm telling you, Google does not like RT. Nope, that's it. No new headlines. So, alrighty. Well, on that note, I think I'm gonna get the hell out of here and start my weekend. So, hope everybody has a good one. Just kind of keep an eye on things the best you can, and that's all we can do. So, God willing, we will see you Sunday night, and we'll take it from there. So as always, God bless you. We love you. Be one with your spirit, and shalom.